Hey Michael, thanks for sending me your swim video for analysis. The length of the video, just around 4 minutes, was perfect. So what I did before I did anything is I tried to find your SWOLF score. I counted your strokes per 25 and added it to your time. Generally, for the most part, you were consistently taking 32 strokes and about 26 to 28 seconds per 25. So the goal with everything I'm about to tell you with your mechanics is to get that stroke count closer to 25. Let's start with below 30. And then in return, by lowering your stroke count, you should get faster with less effort. So when I'm looking at your mechanics, I'm looking at breathing, body balance, rotation. Then I'm looking at the three main phases of the stroke. Recovery, what's going on with your hand out of the water, because that affects hand entry. And your hand entry ultimately affects your underwater catch and push, which make up the pull. So offhand, I can tell your weaker breathing side is your right side is your non-dominant side. I can see you when I stop and pause the video at various aspects of the stroke. I can see you lifting your head when you breathe to the right compared to when you breathe to the left. So notice the difference in your head position when you breathe. When you breathe, you should be rotating on your hip. You should not be lifting your head in any format. So that's very different between the left side, which is your dominant side, and the right side. That is in turn by you lifting your head a little bit to breathe, trying to catch your breath, your legs sink. So I notice this little bobbing motion in your legs. Your legs start to lower, especially when you breathe right. The best way to get comfortable breathing to the non-dominant side is to only breathe to the non-dominant side. If you're struggling with body balance, position, struggling with breathing, I suggest maybe you just stick to the dominant side and breathe every fourth stroke. You might as well try that out, see if it makes a difference in your balance and whether you're breathless or not. Your kick looks okay. The only balance thing, like I said, was when you were breathing to the right, your head looked up and your legs were a little bit lower. So next I'm looking at the recovery part of your stroke. I noticed that your left arm kind of comes around a little bit wider than your right arm, and you're dominantly breathing to the left side, so that could be why. I would want to add some thumb slide drill so you can enforce your high elbow recovery, making sure you're on your hip. So it's going to help with that high elbow recovery as well as hip rotation. And then really everything about this analysis has to do with your left side. The biggest thing I'm noticing, the biggest issue that you have is when your left arm comes around, you're entering like this, kaplunk. You're entering with your elbow, not this extreme, and then you do what's called a stopping motion with your hand. Your fingertips are coming up. You always want to maintain fingertips below the wrist, below your elbow as your arm's coming around, and you want to enter fingertips below the wrist, below the elbow. When you do this, you could see your arm, your left elbow's dropping, and that's going to create and initiate your pull with your elbow instead of initiating your pull with what's called a high elbow catch, elbow above your wrist, above your fingertips, and then you can maximize your push. So looking at hand entry drills, mainly fist and head out of the water drill is going to help that. The next biggest issue I see is when you do breathe, whether you breathe to the left side or right side, but it mostly happens when you breathe to the right side. When your head's out of the water inhaling, your arm is way down here. So I'm going to call that you drop your arm. You drop your arm early. Really, you just drop your arm as your head's taking a breath to inhale. What you want to happen is you want to slightly extend. The only time you want to extend in your stroke is when you're rotating to breathe. You slightly extend this arm for balance, take your inhale, put your face down, and then you start your pull. Because every time you drop that arm while you're inhaling, you just missed out on a propulsive arm movement. So that's a balance thing. So a few balance drills. The kick on the side drill is going to help you leave that arm out in front of you. A drill called double pump is going to help with that balance point. And all these drills can be found in my Swim Faster program, which I highly recommend for you. It's going to take you through a progression of balance, breathing, kick, and then the 3 main aspects of the stroke. So definitely, as already mentioned, dropping your arm when you breathe, as well as entering with your elbow and dropping that elbow are the main things I see. So what you want to happen in the big picture is you want to lead with your elbow, fingertips below your wrist, below your elbow. You're stroking along, you enter and you rotate, you allow that hip rotation to help extend your arm deeper out in front of you because you're rotating. What's driving your rotation is your underwater pull. And the only time you ever do any type of like reach or extension is just when you breathe. Otherwise, you want to think about extending from behind you. So number 3, that's the third thing I noticed, is you're not maximizing your push by extending past your hip. Your arm's coming out a little bit early. So you want to maximize that pull by pushing under your body and pushing all the way past your hip. So again, those 3 things, you want to work on entering with your fingertips, wrist, elbow, and instead of like this. You want to work on leaving your arm extended just when you breathe, and you want to work on maximizing your pull past your hip. That is going to allow you to take less strokes, less effort, and more speed just by working on those 3 things. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Also, thank you for being a fan of the podcast. You had mentioned that you listened to the podcast and you heard about the swim analysis. So we appreciate that. You leave us a voicemail on speakpipe.com/endurance hour, or you can send us an email, or you can post your questions in our T2 Endurance Facebook group. Hopefully this helps. It's it could be a lot, but if you break it down by the 3 main phases of the stroke, you focus on one thing at a time. Over time, with practice, repetition, you're going to improve in your stroke. Make it a great day.